Buongiorno a tutte, buongiorno a tutti, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, both to those joining us here in person and to those following online. It is a great pleasure to welcome today a scholar that many of you already know. Anthony Pym is unquestionably one of the major figures in contemporary translation studies. Roman Jakobson famously paraphrased Terence by saying, "Linguista sum, linguistici nihil a me alienum puto." I am a linguist, nothing linguistic is alien to me. And something similar could be said, I think, of Anthony with regard to translation. It's difficult to think of an area of translation studies that he has not explored with intelligence and originality. If I had to single out just three of his contributions that have particularly influenced me, I would mention for my students Exploring Translation Theories, which is one of the finest introductions to our discipline, and for my own research, Method in Translation History, and then his wonderfully minimalist definition of translation competence as, and I'm paraphrasing here, the ability when faced with a translation problem to generate several viable target text solutions and then select one quickly and with informed judgment. In an age of maximalist definitions, this is at the same time simple, elegant, and operational. So I said three contributions, but let me add one more. More recently, Anthony has co-authored with How to Augment Language Skills, Gen AI and Machine Translation in Language Learning and Translator Training, a work that reflects his engagement with the technological and intellectual transformation currently reshaping our field. And one interesting thing is that a chapter of this book is freely available online from the publisher's site. Before giving him the floor, let me offer two necessary thanks. The first goes to the Department of Languages and Literature, Communication, Education and Society of the University of Udine, and to its director, Professor Fabiana Fusco, for supporting this event. And the second goes to our PhD candidate, Elena Butignol, who recently spent a research period at the Università Virgili in Tarragona and did an excellent job convincing Anthony to come and visit us today. As you know, the topic of today's lecture is translation ethics in an age of AI. I returned only yesterday from the annual meeting of the EMT, the European Masters in Translation Network. As many of you know, the EMT competence framework has become over the years one of the major reference points for translator training in Europe, as well as more and more in the rest of the world. The current version dates back from 2022, but a revised framework is now being prepared for adoption next autumn. And the ethical implications of Gen AI in translation are becoming an increasingly central concern within those discussions. So today's lecture could hardly be more timely. Anthony, thank you once again for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much for that introduction. Hello to everybody here in front of me. I'm so pleased there are people. I'm told it's not a teaching period in Udine, so I expected to have a very select audience, but here you are. And the same to the people online. I don't know if you can see me very well, but this is me down here. Okay. And can you hear me okay? If not, please use the chat and tell us if something has to be done with this sound. Elena, is that right? Nobody's complaining. Good. I'm going to talk about what everybody's talking about. So there's not a lot of originality because you know what? We're all facing the same problems. We as teachers, as researchers, and especially as students mapping out a future career, what do we do with artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, once we discover that, you know what, it can translate quite well, as happened to me. Let me see, it came out in November 2022, January, February 2023, we ran some first tests on different text genres with Spanish, Chinese, English, the three big languages of the world. And at the end of January, I was saying to myself, oh, shit, I've wasted 40 years of my life training translators. What are we going to do? Since then, my position has moderated a bit, but the technology has got better and will continue to get better. So there's a definite rethinking going on. And to tell you the secret, I love it. I love doing research on this. It's so mysterious. You know, that black box in there that perturbs our philosophers and our historians and leads to scaremongering. This entropy that enters into this systemic use of language is fascinating to me as a researcher. This unpredictability, which is what scares other people, for me is this wonderful, wonderful output that I want to know more about. Then again, I'm retiring. I'm not looking for a job. Okay, and if I were looking for a job, as my children are at the moment, or negotiating a job futures, yeah, some rethinking is absolutely necessary. Which brings me to today's topic. It's about ethics, but it's more than just ethics. It's about rethinking the entire business of translation, translation teaching, translation research, translation performance, and interpreting, which does not remain untouched. I'm going to present material that I've been using for about 2 years. There's not much original here. The talk gets better every time I give it. So this is going to be the best version by definition, but I'm really here to throw out some ideas, and then I'm happy to discuss with you for as long as you like, until 4 o'clock. For anybody online, happy to discuss. So I'm going to try to go through these ideas fairly fast. And if it's too fast or you're worried, slow me down, ask a question. That's fine. I'd rather have a dialogue because this is one particular area where I do not feel like an expert giving knowledge. I'm just a user, an explorer like you, saying things I've noticed, things I worry about, things I don't worry about so much. The basic message is this, but this is what everybody will tell you. There's one image of AI, which is where it does everything for you. And the age of agentic AI is that, where we can give it several possible functions in a chain to do, as we would do a pre-edit or pre-write of the English text if we're going from English into Spanish, let's say, and then we give it to a translator or a terminologist first, and a translator, then we give a revision, a comparative with the ST, or a review without looking at the ST, and then it's polished and delivered to the client. We can set up all those functions in the AI system, one after the other. Agentic AI is the way that many of the faults of just one-off, translate this for me, can be solved. Everything's delivered. The human has been replaced. And that's the big fear. There is also, though, the view of AI as assistant with the human when we're using this to augment the skills, to augment our role in the production system. And so I'm going to suggest to you that, yes, that can happen, but our future is over here and in the management aspect of the technological change. Okay, so beware of that mindset with the robot, the machine placing the human. Look for productivity in that mindset with augmentation, using technology to augment skills. That's what communication technologies have always done, after all. If not, get a pencil and paper and try to do your translation. You'll discover we like technology. The other thing before moving on is lots of the scaremongering, and I have wonderful examples of the absurd things people say, but it's not here in this talk. Online, you'll find them. Lots of the scaremongering comes from fields outside of translation. Translation studies and translation practice actually went through a similar crisis around 2016 with neural machine translation, when there was a qualitative leap in the major languages, which is another important thing to bear in mind. And there was lots of, people saying, oh, it's the end of the road. Why would anybody employ a translator? Well, you know what? They did. There was a dip, 2016, 17, they came back. Hey, and then COVID and the rest of recent history hit us. But we should be fairly well inoculated against scaremongering. We should be able to look for the deeper changes, which is what concerns me. Here's an image of deep change. I take this from Lynn Balker, who took it from Sasha Luciani. Sasha Luciani developed it for all areas of communication. Lynn Balker, who writes about technological change with more lucidity than most, gives us the iceberg. What do we know about an iceberg? There's a little bit on the top where the sirens sing and Odysseus gets lured in, right? And beneath, there's all that unknown quantity that sank the Titanic. Remember? I'm giving you film references. And the message is, do not just look at what you can see at the top. The expert deep sea diver or a sonar system will tell you of all these dangers that are at the bottom. I'm interested in that image for two reasons. One, for all of those things at the bottom, I think there's doubt about whether they are just threats. And if you want an argument, I will argue any of those things at the end of my talk. Okay? Any of them. Confidentiality, I'll argue that. I'll argue confidentiality isn't a great change in what's happening. The one I won't argue about is environmental concerns. That worries me greatly. I'll come to that at the end as well. Okay. What intrigues me, though, is that there are so few things on the positive side and so many on the negative that the image is, don't go there. Don't go there. And a lot of what Lynn Barker writes is saying that. Or if you go there with great care. But look, generative LLMs, generative large language models, the stuff you're using when you plug into GPT or Gemini or Copilot or Claude, which is what I'm using these days, or DeepSeek, which is quite wonderful in its own way, any of them can do all these things for you. All these things. And those are the things that the new technology can do. The whole list is really for translation automation as a whole. I put together neural machine translation and generative AI, and I get translation automation as a term, and I look at all the things it can do to help a translator in their work, all of that. You know what? You can get that list and put it on the top of the iceberg. Problem is, it's got more on the top than the bottom, so it's going to tip over, and the whole metaphor doesn't work anymore. All right? So first message to get out to you and to our students and to researchers is, don't just think about translation as sentence replacement, STTT. It can do that pretty well. If that's all you can do, but you're not going to have a job very long. But all these other things can be done with the help of the technology if you know how to do it, and you know how to write a prompt, and you know how to upload data for it to work on your data so it carries out the task that you want it to do. All of those things, please be aware of it, please be able to do it. And our students should come out, if not with all of those capacities, but a good deal of them suited to the particular translation tasks in hand. Okay, so this is where I start to worry about the intense negative discourse that is around us, which is scaring people away and not enabling them to see how it can help us perform. Nobody's sure. These are the great experts that are often cited. Jeff Hinton, so-called father of the internet, because he could do recursive technology for identifying shapes. Fair enough, okay. First time ever, things more intelligent than us. Oh, no. What happens when that? Oh, this guy comes out, Yuval Noah Harari, a populist, very good historian, I must admit. There are parts of his work that I like a lot, but he is very weak on AI. AI might destroy us all. Are you scared? Look at the red, destroy. Look at the colors around Jeff Hinton. It's out there to scare us. But what intrigues me here is that over here, we've got a modal verb. For the first, we may have things. There is doubt. Might destroy us. There is doubt. And in most of our sciences, I hope, we recognize that there is doubt everywhere and that for most of our statements, it's a question of figuring out the probabilities of one outcome or another, getting data, doing the calculations intuitively. It doesn't have to be, all written out, but we do it. It feels like that or it feels like that, yeah. And we do basic risk management about what are the gains if I go there and what are the probable losses. And if there are gains that are going to outweigh the losses, hey, let's go there or mitigate them or act like this, act in a probabilistic way, empirically finding out information. That's the sort of stuff I want to invest in the verb may, which is silly anyway, because of course they're more intelligent than us. It can search the whole internet in seconds. Of course, no human can do that. If that's what intelligence is, that's another argument. And destroy, yeah, it's a possibility. What's the percentage of that might? Get the percentages, then we'll start arguing about. Okay, so many of my students in Spain, where I'm working at the moment, come in with these preconceptions, but forget about the modal verb. Don't want to use AI. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'll fail my course, or I won't learn anything. Well, I may learn it. I'll be reading up. I do risk management. I'm interested in that for solving many kinds of problems. Here's Spiegelhalter, The Art of Uncertainty, trying to quantify the social impacts of generative AI in 25 years' time. That's what those guys are doing. That's exactly it, right? How can anybody do that? How can you start to calculate the social effects of this technology? You can't, because there are so many factors that we not only don't have information about, but we don't know what those factors are. There are the unknown unknowns, okay? And that is deep uncertainty. The problem, says Spiegelhalter, is that without recognizing deep uncertainty, without recognizing the limits of our knowledge about how to address these problems, you move into not deep uncertainty, but meta ignorance, as a special kind of ignorance that happens when humility is forgotten and people do not know what they don't know. The answer is to start to figure out the probabilities. Some feels that is happening in very intelligent ways. This is from a very recent article, I think from this week, or last few days. Harvard University, studying how AI can be used, when in emergency wards and cases come in and people, medical staff, often nurses, have to do triage. You have to say who goes first, who gets attention first, who waits, okay? I'm interested in the problem because the same thing happens for translations in an emergency. How do you do the triage for languages and translation workflows? Very complex decisions have to be made very fast with lots and lots of information bases. AI might do it better, has been found to do it better in some cases than humans. Sure, because it's complexity, it's handling complexity, and it's designed to do that, to recognize patterns and come up with probabilistic answers. It's all probability. But that initial testing isn't to say, oh yes, let's go and use AI for everything. No, it says to warrant clinical testing. Okay, we get this, we know it can do that. Let's go and test it out and see exactly how well, in which circumstances it works. I want to see that happen in translation studies instead of anybody saying, oh, it can do all of that, or oh, it's all rubbish. It's a bit of both. It's a probability. Get down and do the empirical studies to work out what it can and can't do, and therefore where the humans are needed and what they can do. So from that perspective, the questions of ethics in translation, which once were obviously concerned with issues of accuracy, fidelity, or loyalty. Have you followed the text? Have you followed the instructions? Have you kept everybody happy? That was ethics, perhaps 20 years ago. Now, we've moved into other kinds of issues. We're worried about things like transparency. Do people know what's going on? Should they know? Doesn't matter if and when they know. Okay, transparency is a huge issue. It only works for languages. I said I work with English, Spanish, and Chinese, the big three, with big databases. What happens with Friulan, for example, or Armenian, Nune Ayvazyan, with whom I work in Tarragona in Spain, speaks Armenian. We try it with Armenian. Absolute rubbish. No, actually, for machine translation, Google Translate, DeepL, something, but the LLMs, blah, forget about it. Okay. The research, very good researchers, Dublin City University, check with Irish, same thing. You know what? The old machine translation gives better results than the new LLMs. So there's a lot of doubt going on there about which languages are privileged, which are not. Energy consumption, I mentioned. Anchoring is something I'm going to look at, and this worry about losing authentic language, the loss of authenticity in language. Okay. And then atrophy of translation skills, loss of employment, and accountability I mentioned. Okay. Don't look up. I'm going to go through all of those things very quickly. If there's anything that particularly worries you, I can spend longer on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. My hypothesis is that on each of those, there is some good and some bad, and that the bad has been magnified too much. So I'm usually unpopular. It's much easier if you're an experts are trained to be negative in any field. Do you know why? Because if something good happens, they forget about the bad advice that was given by the expert. And if something bad happens, they can come out and say, I told you so. So it's logical for the expert to be negative. So I'm breaking the rule. Research is often done to prove a hypothesis that people want to prove. And a lot of the research has been very, look, I got this the other day. I'll leave them anonymous, but there was a panel of translation scholars, and they were asked about this. What's the future of translation with AI? Did anybody say they didn't know? No. They said, oh, well, yeah. One of them came out and said, but you know what? It's a great period for translation studies. I think it is too. And they said, well, why? Because we can do research to show why humans are necessary. Yeah, but you can't tell researchers what they have to find, because then you're not doing research. You're reproducing ideology. A lot of research sets out to prove something people want to prove before they do the research. And that's where I get upset. So if you want to prove that Gen AI does not give authentic language, for example, just say, translate this into Italian. Don't use a prompt. Don't raise the temperature. Don't ask, don't give any reference text. Don't give anything else. You'll prove it. Well, that's what you set out to prove. You want to prove that AI doesn't know anything about the receivers, and the human translator does, which would be a bloody marvel if clients told translators who the receivers were, which doesn't really happen. But then, sure, test it on isolated sentences and phrases without a complex continuous text, because a complex continuous text will give you a profile of the receiver and the purpose of the translation. But if you stay at sentence level, you've proved your hypothesis. AI is not creative. Oh, yeah, we get this a lot. So you compare it with a human translator, find a good human translation. Don't use one of your students' translations. That will not help the thing, okay? And then don't use prompts to stimulate creativity. Because if you put in a prompt that doesn't mention linked language variation or modify for particular users and profiles, you will get less creativity than a human who knows those things. But give the machine a chance. Tell it what the human knows. And then they use, it doesn't have real understanding, but then who understands a text? And then they use academics, us as the expert readers, as if we knew everything about every text. And there were no active hermeneutics and variation in reception. And then it doesn't have the whole list of things, cultural nuances, empathy, emotions. I'm sure you all believe this, that a machine, it can't know all those things. How could it possibly know about emotions? How can it use emotive language? How can it feel? Well, how do little kids, or you when you were a little kid, how did you learn to have and use and express emotions? Perhaps not have, but to express emotions. Haven't you seen babies pretend to cry to get attention? They learn really quickly about how to manipulate emotions and express even when it's not a real feeling inside. It's learned from data in situations. Of course it will learn all those things because we have learned those things in that way. So I don't accept for a minute that there is some essential humanity somewhere that cannot be imitated by these systems. Okay. If there is, prove it to me. Okay, let's go one by one. These are fairly easy things to deal with, but transparency is interesting, I think. I'm picking up a document done by the French Association of Literary Translation, which it's called, and it's summary there. Translators call for transparency. Okay, I'm taking the translation, which is on their website. And it's interesting because I went through the whole document. I mean, you can't be against transparency. I'm not going to say, yeah, long live obscurity. Let's be obscure. I'm not going to say that. Transparency is always a good thing. But the one example they use is this one. They give an example, which is good. Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. This is an example of what transparency might be. This is a French translation of my book on translation theories. And I did it with Jacomat, who's a native speaker of French, and we participated. I'm a horrible speaker of French. And in the preface, we explained exactly how we did it, with which systems, which technology, and what the work process was. Why not? I've nothing against that. And actually, Brian Mossop saw that. Brian Mossop works on revision, is now retired, but in Canada, and he immediately picked up a particular passage where we had said there are three things that have to be done. 1, 2, and number 3 was missing, which is a typical error caused by these systems. And he said, you see, I know you did it with these systems. The good thing is we published online so I could correct the text very quickly. So yeah, sure. I'm all in favor of that. I think that's the ethical thing to do in all fields. What's interesting, if you go and use all these systems, all of at the moment, for legal advice, financial advice, or medical advice, they will always say, consult a lawyer, a financial expert, or a doctor. Okay? Otherwise, they're prone to pay. Yeah. They should do it for translation. If it's a long, complex text, at least they should please consult a professional translator like you do the others. Yeah. But that doesn't happen. I think it should happen in the interest of transparency. But, I got rid of the example. All right, the example. I'm simplifying. The example, okay, it's from a story by Hemingway. Have I really not got that example? I haven't either. Do you want the example or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Story by Hemingway. It's called a very short story. And there's a sentence in it. He's describing Venice, and they go up to a room after a party, and he's with a girl called Luz, Spanish name. And the sentence is, Luz sat on the bed. Luz sat on the bed. How would you translate that into Italian?
Luz era seduta.
Era seduta, grazie. Into Italian? Elena. Same thing, era seduta. Luz sat on the bed.
Si sedette, sì.
Huh?
Si sedette.
They said, it's different.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, into Spanish, I can say, estaba sentada. Okay. Stative. Or,
Se sentò.
se sentó. Thank you very much. Glad you all speak Spanish, right? Okay. The sentence in English is just ambiguous. It can mean she was sitting on the bed or she sat down on the bed, right? And people interpret it in different ways. Good. So this was researched by Waltraud Kolb in Vienna, and she found that students who had used an MT system all gave the same, which I think was she sat on the bed, and people who didn't had variation. They gave different interpretations. Therefore, the students who used the technology were anchored to one kind of reading rather than the other. Good research. Good research. Yeah, so it explains what anchoring is, and I have no doubt that that happens. No doubt at all. Except that in the story, nothing at all depends on how you interpret that text. It doesn't get better or worse, whether she was sitting down or sat on the bed. It's just an ambiguity that has no literary function or narrative function there. And it doesn't matter. And if it doesn't matter, for me, it's entirely logical to take the shortest route and copy what's in front of you. Well, why would you not? Why would you not? I did some research on this. I tried out all the systems. All the systems gave se sentò. She sat down. All of them. Okay. Detail, I had to, I think the fourth, the default gives you alternatives.
Mhm.
I think the fourth one was she was sitting. So you can get it, it's not excluded. I think, well, that's strange. Why, nothing depends. But wonder why they go for that one and not the other. And then I found 3 Spanish translations of Hemingway's A Very Short Story. What do all 3 have? Se sentó. What did the technology do? It picked up what the humans had done, all 3, and reproduced that. Recognizes the pattern, reproduces the pattern. Have we lost variation? Yeah. Does it matter? No. Okay. Now, if it were a key moment in the story, or the classical problem that Gilles Lévy uses for the Bertolt Brecht play, A Good Woman, of Setsuan, A Gute Mensch, where Mensch can be translated as a person or a woman or a being, and it really, really matters for the play. Hey, yeah. And you're going to get more variation because there's more human variation in the database. But when it doesn't matter, come on, guys. Nothing depends on this. How much, do you want a bit of creativity just for the sake of variation? Nah. All right. Perhaps I've got that example further on. I don't know. We'll see. Any comments on that? Have I convinced you that, look, guys, serious point. If it's a high stakes translation, yes, check it, use variation, compare different systems, whatever. Think about it yourself. If it's low stakes, and most of the world are using the systems for low stake things. Anyway, I'll qualify that a bit, but when it doesn't matter, it's fine. Figure out what's at stake first, then get upset about creativity or loss of authenticity or whatever. My doubts were this: lots of people use these systems for restaurant menus. You were just at a restaurant And I didn't know what a thing was, you know. So my son will scan it, find out immediately, get the translation. And what we find, we've done some research on this. People are not stupid, right? When the translation is a bit iffy, like I don't really know what that is, and I don't know what, you don't order it. So, you know, people will trust the automatic translation, no matter what the system, as long as not much depends on it, as long as it's not high risk. Low risk stuff, fair enough, and just avoid it when in doubt. People are doing this. Translators should realize that we come in, we are employed for high stakes texts when checking is absolutely needed, but not for the low stakes stuff. Do you understand what I mean by high stakes, low stakes? Whether or not something depends on it or nothing depends on it. Different languages, there's tons of research, even more than this. This was on checking Hausa and Icelandic. I mentioned Irish, Armenian, why German's good. You can check how many electronic resources are available on the web. English, Spanish, German, Japanese, French. You're going okay. I can't see, oh, Italian's down there, 2.8. You know, up there you're okay. But when you get down to the long tail languages, it doesn't have much to work on. And so the quality of the output is at the stage where it's not threatening professional translators, really not threatening, and helping them in some, you know, you would consult it when in doubt. When you want information, you get the information in English. But the examples we're using are big European languages. There's about 7,000 languages in the world. That means about, you know, 6,800 languages that still need humans for them. There's hope for us. Oh, this is the example. Oh, well, I developed Luth and I did I told you all about it. Anyway, there she is, Luth. That's an AI image, of course. And I'm a bit worried because I get research like this by Anna Geberoff, who's a former doctoral student of mine, Antonio Toral, proving that that a neural MT system, so, okay, not AI, but yeah, it is AI, but it's not generative AI, trained on literary data, does not currently have necessary capabilities for a creative translation. It renders literal solution to translation problems. If you don't ask it to be creative, it won't be creative. So I asked it to be creative. Suggest acceptable but creative alternatives for sentence. Lord se sentó en la cama. Estaba sentada en la cama. Tomó asiento en la cama. Nobody would ever say tomó asiento, but it's very creative. Okay. Of course it can be if you let it be and tell it.
Archaic, tomó asiento. Is that archaic?
Archaic? No, it's what they tell you in the airplane when they say, you sit down.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, all right, point made. Give it a chance, tell it. Right, authenticity. Authenticity, this is where people get scared. We're going to lose authenticity. This comes in with arguments about what's called AI slop. Do you have that in Italian? Do you have slop? Do you know what it means, slop? Yes? How would you translate that? Any idea?
I think we use the
slop.
Yeah.
Oh.
An example is this. It's an AI-generated image for an article about refugee children being abandoned. And so we got the teddy bear and the crying and everything, and it's false. It's perhaps obviously false, but people are consuming this. And this is slop. Slop is usually for the visual aspect of the technologies, but it has been applied to the language quality. In this article by Lynn Balker, especially where she picks up what's presumed to be the iron triangle of any product, you can't have high quality, be fast and cheap at the same time. Okay, it's impossible to do all of that. I don't know, Lynn. I think we might have something here that can do high quality and be fast and be apparently free. Although it feeds on our data as we use it, so nothing's free, of course. She assumes there that if it's fast and cheap, it can't be high quality. But I want to prove that. I want to really test it rather than just assume it on the slot. There is mathematical justification for recursivity having a negative effect on variation. What does this mean? If an AI system gives an output and that output is fed back into the system and produces a new output fed back into the system, etc., it's recursivity, the degree of variation will diminish because it's trained to look for patterns, and so it privileges higher probability. That's mathematical paper. Yeah. That's what we're afraid of. That everything, all the language we produce, and we're all individual users of language, we recognize each other on the way we write, etc. We can pick our students on the basis of the way they write. Over time, with recursivity, we will all be writing the same way. Loss of authenticity in the sense of individual expression in language. All right. But you know what I'm going to say? Post edit, correct it, put in your own things, upload your own data, don't use everybody else's data. Give prompts that say, write like Anthony Pill. If you wanted to. I mean, give it a chance. Give it a chance. Although mathematically this is a problem, and I think we do have to come to terms with it. And the way to come to terms with it, to mitigate it, is to use individual variation in the production of text and or in the post-editing, that is the post-passage through machine rewriting or correction of the text. But look, the word slop rang a bell for me because I've worked on translation theories. This is Vinay Dabelnet. You remember them? Somebody? Here we are. 1958, two French linguists went to Canada, were worried that the Canadians were just translating without much training and said we have to train really good linguists because if we don't, what's going to happen? 4/5 of the globe will live exclusively on bad translations and intellectually starve on slop for cats. I think that's Andrew Chesterman's translation. Bouillon pour les chats. Okay, cat food, bad stuff, not real food, cat food. This denigration of non-professional language has been with us for a long, long time. Okay, but we are the expert users. We know how to use the language correctly. This charge of slop as being somehow subhuman has been invested in. Bourdieu picks it up. He says, as soon as there were language teachers, going back to Greece, the sophists, as soon as there were language teachers, we separate a superior kind of language from general usage. And that language teaching has been operating on this charge of slop forever. What's changed is that a lot's changed in there. But what's interesting is that I'll just go through it quickly. Since 1958, what's happened is not that 4/5 of the globe has lived on bad translations historically. It might happen now. But 4/5 of the globe has learned bad English.
Bad English.
Bad English of the kind that my students use all the time. L2, L3 English is being spoken by travelers, tourists, academics all over the world without translators, without professional translators, and they're quite happy. They're quite happy. My historical work was a lot on medieval Latin, like 11th, 12th century Latin. It really, really, oh my God, it was horrible. Oh my God, it was creative, but it was slop compared to classical Latin. It was the lingua franca. That's what happens with the lingua franca. Why should that be so bad? I don't think so. So I'm worried about the ideology of this, okay? And I haven't got good there are some papers actually that do test this and purport to prove it, that it does happen on literary translations. But again, they used very simple prompts. They didn't give the system a chance to do what it's doing. Okay. Oh, I've got to keep everybody awake now. This is where you wake up, right? Loss of employment. So I'm arguing that there are good usages. I'm interested that the younger generations are using many of these systems well, smarter than people like me, who just put in one prompt. Although I must confess, we did a study among our students in languages and engineering, and we said, what system do you use? And all the engineering people said, Google Translate. We said, well, why not use one of the LLMs? You know, I think it's better. Oh, I have to write a prompt. Too much work. You know, just give me the answer quick. So there's a certain laziness in popular usage which deserves to be corrected. Anyway, loss of employment. Are we going to have employment? Find evidence of it. There are surveys every year of the European translation industry. Okay. And a survey in 2024, what's that, 2 years ago, steadily growing. So wait a minute. The technology came in 2022, and wait a minute, 2016 was neural machine translation. So, hey, what's happening? Well, I've had to change my tune a little bit since then. 2025, 39% of language company participants in the ELIS, this is the European Language Industry Survey, okay, reported lower staffing levels, and only 11% reported an increase, while 23% of self-employed translators are considering ending their freelance activity. Whoa, that's in 1 year. It changed in 1 year? What? Can that be true? Well, look at the numbers. 39% reported lower staffing levels. 11% reported an increase. What's missing there? That's 50% of them. There's no change. So 50% of them had no, in fact, 61% have been unaffected. The majority have been, I could rewrite that sentence to make you feel good about the industry. Okay, but it's written to make you feel bad about it. Okay, and the self-employed translators considering ending their freelance activity. This is a long-term tendency over all these reports which come out every year. Bit by bit, profits go to the bigger companies. Bankruptcies abound among small companies with one or two. Okay, the image of the lone freelance translator or husband or wife team often, or small specialized translation bureau. These people are steadily losing income, and the big companies are making it. Okay, so despite what it says there, the real story is not of a global sector that suffers or doesn't suffer. Some people suffer. The big ones who have got the technology, invest in it, use it, are reaping the benefits, and the smaller players are not. So somebody, I gave this talk in Germany, a much inferior version of this talk, and somebody asked me, well, what would you recommend for us for employment? And I said, get a job with a big company. Oh, yeah. And in fact, that was in Heidelberg. SAP employs their graduates and saps them up into SAP. And that seems a logical way to read these numbers. Unless you want to be a great literary translator, well, good luck. Don't look at the numbers. However, the barriers to a rewarding career in the data, it's not a regular question that they ask. This one is from 2023. The barrier, I don't know if you can see it, too low rates, work-life balance, lack of direct clients, such as you go through an agency, instability of the market, too much competition, your work is not appreciated, and then technology. So the structural problems in the industry cannot be attributed directly to technology. There are severe structural problems in the way translators are viewed and employed. This is a similar thing in Australia. It was a big survey, about 2,300 translators and interpreters, and they asked for reasons for likelihood of leaving the translation sector. Here are the reasons. Not enough pay, same thing. Not secure employment, lack of a career opportunity, that you don't go up with numbers of years. Lack of respect for my skills. Certification, that's an Australian problem. Retirement, I appreciate that. No, I can't work in a normal 8-hour working day. It just costs too much to be certified. Lack of employment, burnout, no technology. No technology. I mean, that's my point. Yes, there are serious problems in the translation sector in many countries. So I don't know of a country where there are not any problems, but you cannot blame all that on technology. It will aggravate existing problems that are there. Okay. And my recommendation is still work for a big company, because they are the people accruing the profits, the benefits of the technology. I bet that upset you. All right. But do not think that you or I or anyone has a right to a particular profession because you were trained in it or you like doing it. You might be like this man whose job was to light the gas lamps in the street and put them out at the end of the night. They disappeared because the technology changed. Yeah. You've got to look for ways in which your skills mix with the technology. That's upsetting for you. I don't want to be too negative. I do want to point out that employment in the companies that participate in that big survey, when I asked them what kind of employment are you offering, what kind of skills do you need, the general reply is we need good communicators. We need people with a lot of uneasiness among clients, company clients, about the technology, what it can do, what its risks are. We need people who understand the technologies and can explain that to clients and manage accounts and make people feel easy about it. And then for the high risk text, and that's where most of those that work must be, we need people who can go over and revise, correct, and sign off on the text. People are going to pay these companies not for the numbers of words, because numbers of words, it's automatic. They're paying for the trustworthiness of the product. They're paying for someone to sign off on it, say this is valid, this is a valid translation. And that trustworthiness is what good communicators can build up. Employment opportunities, yes, in communication. My son is studying data systems. He did a course on machine learning. He came back and said, I love coding. It can code. I love analyzing the systems. It can analyze itself. He says, what am I going to do? And he realizes that he has languages and that his role will be communicating between people in a company. His bigger brother does this in an IT company in Barcelona. He communicates between the technicians and the salespeople for software. He's a pure communicator and he has languages. Okay, so there's employment there. Is it straight translation work? Yes or no? This concerns transparency as well, to move back to something else. Alan Melby is going around the United States and Europe proposing that we seriously need labels for translation products, like you have labels for food. My wife is celiac. We look on everything to see if it's gluten-free. Okay? It's a gluten-free. I'm looking for that label. Translations should come with a simple label. And the simplest way we can get it is translator certified, that a human has been in that loop and signs off on it, or raw or uncertified. There are many different variants, okay. What counts is not that it's all handmade. That doesn't mean much anymore, but has the person signed off on it and taken responsibility for it, translation certified. That's the simplest labeling we can get. That's what people will pay for. Yeah, look, I'll go a bit faster, I think. Here we go. Oh, we got too long. Okay. Finally. Oh, almost finally. Sorry. 8th of July, 2025. 1 billion people daily. The annual electricity use of over 3 million people in a low-income African country. There's a serious debate among the people who have the AI companies about whether or not they should have one big system that does general human intelligence or separate systems for separate tasks. And the people winning that debate now are in the second camp, separate systems for separate tasks, not because of the superior quality of the output, but because there's less energy used. And the consumption of energy is perhaps the most serious problem on the technical side. Doesn't concern usage. I work on usage, but when the big companies in, Apple, Microsoft say, oh, no, it's okay, we'll set up our own power plant to keep these systems running. I think that's just crazy. All right. So, yes, there is a technical problem there. Yes, there's a problem because I like my students to put in big prompts to get really good output, and the bigger the prompt, the more energy is consumed. So I'm aware of that trade-off. Let's watch that space. As a person in the humanities, my thinking is this. It's the iceberg thing. Yes, there's an environmental problem, and it's worth paying something there if there are benefits over here. My task is to increase the benefits so that that cost can be justified. The real problem is when there's high costs over here and no human benefits. Okay, so let the technicians work on that one. Let me work on this one. Okay, that's the only way I can address that problem. Although Elon Musk, crazy, of course, but hey, he has the solution. Do you know what it is? Elon has the Starlink satellites. Put all the computer systems up there. Lots of direct sunlight, very cold, no problem. Yes, so don't give up. You just Okay. In summary, transparency, yes, I think there should be lots of it. That's very important. That's ethical. Tell people how you do it, but also the AI systems should be transparent about warning people about what you do. Languages, look, the answer is to get more electronic resources available in more languages. Sorry, but that's the only way to mitigate that problem. Anchoring may not be a problem, depending on the kind of text situation. We've done a lot of work on emergency messaging, particularly in Australia, bushfire messaging and stuff like that. Anchoring is great. You want consistent, clear language reproduced all the time. Creativity, learn to use prompts, guys, and revise the text. Responsibility, yes, and we have to train people how to do that, how to gain trustworthiness, how to communicate with people. We do lots of simulated activities in my translation classes between companies, translation companies, and client companies, and they have to sell text to each other without them knowing the foreign language. So pure selling stuff you don't know where it's coming from. But anyway, employment. I do think that my approach to ethics, which is not based on accuracy or fidelity or equivalence, can handle most of these problems because I've been using it all the time. It's just based on cooperation, where whatever we do, there are benefits for all the people involved, unequal benefits. Some people, OpenAI is going to get stinking rich. Okay, and I don't get that much money, so that's not fair. Yes, it's not fair, but I'm getting benefits and they're getting benefits, so it's sort of basically fair in my ethics, okay? As long as there is something for everybody and nobody's losing, then it's okay. So I think on all those problems under the iceberg, my argument is that we can find enough benefits for the people engaged to come out better than they were beforehand. But that may require a lot of translators rethinking what they do, rethinking the workflows, rethinking who they work with, how they market themselves. Yeah. If not, they will be losing. My final example is this, I think, that the cooperation doesn't require a lot of technology. A lot of the technology that we've got these days enables stuff to be done very, very cheaply and with success, okay? And without, all right, well, I'll play this. We did a lot of work on communication in Melbourne, 270 languages, with COVID vaccination information. How do you get all those language communities to accept vaccination? You may not believe, anyway. And the most successful communicative operation there, involving languages, was not through professional translators entirely. They said, who are the most trusted people? Tell trustworthy. So who's most trusted? For medical stuff, who would you trust?
A doctor.
Thank you. So they went to the doctors in the big hospital and found that there were people who spoke all these languages. And they got them to get up there and not do a translation. Well, here's an example. I don't know if it's going to work. Oh, you can't hear it. Doesn't matter. Hello, my name.
Oh,
It's in Arabic.
maybe I just have to.
Doesn't matter.
Здесь.
You can read the subtitles.
Все, которые ты потратил.
Somebody's. Okay, I won't even play it all. I'll just tell you. What's he doing?
Скоро уже
He's a
закончится.
doctor?
Ты есть хочешь?
Это последний?
Нет, еще в 6. Есть хочешь?
All right.
Я, короче, решил сменить.
Good, thank you.
Someone has.
Somebody's okay, it's a first-person narrative of why I got vaccinated and got my family vaccinated, and I'm from this person, this is what happened, etc. All right? Who do they trust? That guy. Because it's a person. What's the technology? Hey, you stick a camera in front of somebody and they speak. The simplest technology. Were professional translators involved? Sure they were. Who did the subtitles? They're very good there. Was it controlled? Yes, it was controlled by the hospital. They don't let them say anything. We don't know what they're saying. Okay. So yes, professional translation is involved, but the technology need not be high. Cheap technology can produce benefits quite easily for all. The challenge is to do that with these new technologies that are fast, higher quality, and very cheap. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
A
you.
lot of food for thought and
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.